2 wives bound, bruised, and left to perish under the ruthless Arizona sun. Only a wealthy, stone-hearted cowboy stands between them and certain death. But will his frosty resolve melt in the face of their suffering, or will danger still stalk them in the shadows? Stay tuned, because this rescue is one you'll never forget. Don't miss the full journey. Subscribe now, ring the bell, and join Colt's fight for justice and redemption. The desert wind sliced across the wide, barren flats of Arizona, carrying heat so savage it was like it was sucking the life out of everything in its way. Colt Rollins, a rancher, a sheriff, and a man infamous across the county for his cold, calculating nature, was riding home from a late trip to town when he noticed something that made him take a second glance. Close up to a worn, broken cattle fence, 2 women stood leaning against the posts. Their wrists were bound with rough rope, the dresses torn and dusty. Bruises marked their sunburned flesh, and fatigue clung to them like a cloud. A spark in Colt ignited a flicker of feeling buried deep beneath his hardened exterior. He urged his horse forward and dismounted slowly, lest he scare them off. The women looked up, eyes wide, scouring his face for some hint of mercy or danger. Colt's gaze swept the desolate horizon, his hand near the revolver at his hip. "Who did this to you?" he asked, his voice low and flat, his eyes protected from the burning sun. The taller woman's voice trembled. "Our husband. He left us here to die." The words hit Colt harder than the desert heat. His jaw tightened. This kind of cruelty offended his own sense of justice. He didn't waste a second but pulled out a knife from his belt and slashed through their bindings. He offered them his canteen, watching as they drank greedily, relief softening their wary expressions. Helping them onto his horse, Colt watched as the small woman stumbled, her strength all but gone. He caught her when she fell, and in doing so, something strange got a hold of him, a tiny crack in the icy barrier he'd built around his heart. His life had been one of cattle, land, and solitude for years, a stronghold in which there was no room for softness or attachment. But here, under the scorching desert sun, these 2 women were challenging everything that he'd thought he knew about himself. He seated them by the fire at his ranch, offering food and fresh clothing. Slowly, their voices steadied, and they related their story. Their husband was a cunning, cruel, greedy drifter, a vagabond who had married them both for their dowries, then deserted them in the desert for having had the temerity to oppose him. Colt listened silently as his anger simmered just below the surface. In this rough land, the law moved too slowly, if at all. But Colt Rollins meted out his own brand of justice. Swift, complete, and absolute. That night, while the women slept in safety, Colt sat alone on the porch. His eyes were fixed on the black desert, where danger still lurked, and the stars seemed to whisper of a day of reckoning yet to come. Above, the night sky gaped cold and distant, but inside Colt, a fire had been sparked. He thought of the violence those women had endured, the treachery that had left them to die in the desert. Somewhere deep down, he knew their fate could no longer be trusted to chance. His armored heart, closed off from the world for so long, had opened in ways he never imagined. The desert had a way of stripping away illusions and boiling things down to truth, and Colt's truth was now clear. He would find the man who had abandoned them, and when he did, justice would be swift. The existence of the cold cowboy was never going to be the same, transformed by a fire much stronger than the burning Arizona sun, the fire of compassion and the need to protect the helpless. He set the taller woman atop his horse gently, steadying her as she swayed. When he reached for the smaller one, her knees gave way beneath her from utter exhaustion. Colt caught her in his arms without hesitation. Strong yet gentle, his arms enveloped her, and a peculiar warmth seeped into his chest, a warmth he hadn't allowed himself in years. For so long, Colt had lived in the fortress of his own solitude, employing wealth, cattle, and determination alone to mold his life. But now, As he looked into their frightened and yet hopeful eyes, he felt the walls that he had built beginning to break down. Their suffering and quiet courage were eroding the frozen exterior he had maintained for so long. He didn't hesitate at the ranch. They were provided with food, shelter, and clean clothes without hesitation. The women, still distrustful, accepted his attentions with suppressed gratitude. Over a plain but nourishing meal, they told their story in broken tones. Their husband, a self-seeking, wandering vagabond, had married them both for the dowries they brought alone. When he had his will, he tied them to a fence in the pitiless desert and left them to perish. Each word was heavy with pain and betrayal. Colt listened to it all in silence, his fists clenched under the table, his face expressionless. Inside, however, anger burned hot and steady. Justice, he knew, could wait no longer. That night, while the women slept safely, Colt sat alone on the porch. Before him stretched the vast night of the desert, lit only by the sparkle of distant stars. His mind kept returning to the violence they had suffered and to the man who had inflicted it. A resolve set hard in his heart, solid as stone. He would follow the drifter through whatever barren miles it would take and make certain he could never harm another soul again. Colt Rollins, once invincible and unfeeling, had been changed by something far more durable than desert heat. It was the strength of compassion, the pull of justice, and a new purpose, to protect the innocent at any cost. This was the night that everything changed, a silent vow beneath the stars, to avenge the betrayed and bring peace to two women left for dead. I read through the changes you made, and I like them.